Manchester United, a club of kings, legends, dynasties, titles, and in late 2021, a club spiraling into chaos so hard that even the club's own history books were getting nervous. And then came Ralf Rangnick, the tactical professor, the man who inspired Klopp, Tuchel, and half of German football. United fans dreamed of high pressing, modern structure, actual tactics, maybe even players that looked like they knew each other's names. But oh boy, this story turned out to be less mastermind revolutionizes team and more therapist attempts to fix a dysfunctional household in 6 months. Let's dive into the bizarre, brutally honest, occasionally hilarious, and historically weird tenure of Ralf Rangnick at Manchester United. To understand Rangnick's United's reign, you must understand the battlefield. It was November 2021. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was gone after the infamous 4-1 loss to Watford, a match that felt like a footballing exorcism gone wrong. The United squad was buzzing with tension. Cristiano Ronaldo had returned and instantly changed the team's dynamics. Bruno Fernandes looked exhausted from carrying the club for a year and a half. Harry Maguire was struggling for form. Jadon Sancho had arrived but wasn't settled. Paul Pogba was in the final year of his contract. Marcus Rashford looked like he was playing with a low battery warning above his head. And the team cohesion? Let's just say that if you were to ask a United player in November 2021 where their teammates were supposed to be on the pitch, they would have needed Google Maps. United weren't just losing games, they were losing structure, identity, spirit. The club needed a tactical reboot, a direction, a philosophy. So they hired the man known as the godfather of gegenpressing. Ralf Rangnick came in with a clear job description. Stabilize the team for 6 months, implement some identity, prepare the squad for the next permanent manager, then transition into a consultancy role. His first press conference was clean, intelligent, and brutally honest. He openly said United needed control, structure, and compactness, words the players probably needed translated since they weren't seeing any on the pitch at the time. And his first game against Palace? A 1-0 win, a clean sheet, and a proper pressing shape. Fans were actually excited. Fred scored a curling goal. Yes, Fred, and everything seemed possible. But this was the peak. The peak was the first game. Rangnick wanted intensity, pressing triggers, compact lines, vertical passing, a 4-2-2-2 system with synchronized pressing. But here's the truth. United's squad was not physically prepared, tactically suited, or mentally aligned for gegenpressing. Players who weren't used to pressing suddenly had to become sprinters. Older players struggled physically. Younger players struggled tactically. Midfielders struggled positionally, defenders struggled existentially. Some matches looked like United were pressing air molecules while opponents passed around them like cones. Rangnick even admitted publicly that the squad lacked physicality and intensity. Translation: we're too slow, too tired, and too open. Crystal Palace 1-0. The hope. United actually ran, United actually pressed. Fans thought the season was saved. Newcastle 1-1. The reality check. Saint Maximin ran through United like he was on a fun run. This was the first sign that the squad couldn't sustain Rangnick's demands. Then came the FA Cup exit to Middlesbrough. United created enough chances to win 3 games and they missed all of them. A highly controversial handball goal stood for Borough. A nightmare. Leeds 2, United 4. Chaos through chaos. The perfect example of United surviving by sheer talent and not system. Manchester City 4, United 1. The humbling. The second half was so one-sided that City completed 926 passes. United? Let's not talk about it. The final nail in the coffin. Liverpool 4, United 0. The "we are nowhere near them" game. Rangnick openly admitted the gap between the teams was massive. This was the moment everyone knew the job was bigger than one interim manager could solve. This is where things get real. The dressing room during Rangnick's tenure was one of the leakiest, tensest, and most chaotic in modern club history. The squad was split into cliques. Multiple reputable reports suggested divisions: the Portuguese-speaking group, the English core, younger players, dissatisfied players wanting transfers. Rangnick inherited a squad full of factions, frustrations, and players leaving soon. Some players didn't like trainings. Rangnick brought in Sasha Lenz, a sports psychologist, to help improve mentality and focus. Some players welcomed it, others found it odd, unnecessary, or simply not what they were used to. Intensity increased, video analysis increased, and not everyone was happy. There were multiple transfer requests. Anthony Martial wanted out, Donny van de Beek wanted minutes, Jesse Lingard wanted a move, Dean Henderson wanted first team football. All of this created a tense environment. Players complained about public honesty. Rangnick openly spoke about the lack of quality, lack of cohesion, and need for major squad overhaul, which some players felt exposed or criticized publicly. Information kept leaking to the media. This was one of the biggest issues. Stories like some players unhappy with Rangnick's tactics, Maguire and Ronaldo tension, players wanting Mauricio Pochettino instead of Rangnick, players confused by Ralph's detailed instructions. Rangnick was stunned by the number of leaks. He privately felt certain players were bypassing him and going straight to the press. Then there were the player attitude problems. Rangnick later admitted that some players were simply not committed. He said, if some players don't want to play for the club, they should leave. He even mentioned at one point that he had offered the club multiple striker options in January, including Julian Alvarez and Dusan Vlahovic, but United signed none of them. Lastly, Ronaldo's presence was a tactical challenge. Ronaldo was respected, but his style clashed with Rangnick's pressing philosophy. Privately, some teammates reportedly felt everything was being built around Ronaldo, but Rangnick had no true replacement striker, so he had to adapt even if it didn't fit his ideal system. The final collapse. United's form nosedived, injuries piled up, performances were horrendous, the dressing room was fractured, some players mentally checked out, fan frustration hit record levels. United finished 6th with their worst points total of the Premier League era at that time. Rangnick looked exhausted, like a man who opened a door and found 20 years of structural footballing decisions stacked against him. Rangnick was supposed to stay on as a consultant for 2 years. He was meant to help reshape the club, advise on recruitment, and overhaul the footballing structure. But shortly after Erik ten Hag's arrival was confirmed, United announced Rangnick would not be staying in the consultancy role. Why? The official reason was that his new role as Austria's coach made the dual job arrangement impractical. The unofficial interpretations varied. Ten Hag reportedly preferred to work without Rangnick's presence. Some at United didn't like his public comments, and the club wanted a clean slate. And so after 6 turbulent months, the professor walked away. Rangnick's legacy isn't trophies or wins or memorable football. His legacy is the truth that he exposed. He identified the deep structural issues, called out the poor recruitment, highlighted unfit squad profiles, pushed for modern football operations, recommended a major rebuild, exposed the fragmentation in the dressing room, and warned of years' worth of mismanagement. Many of the same problems he highlighted were later acknowledged by Erik ten Hag and the club itself. In a strange way, Rangnick didn't fix United, but he revealed what needed fixing. Sometimes the doctor doesn't perform the surgery. Sometimes he gives the diagnosis no one wants to hear. So that's the story of Ralf Rangnick's wild, honest, and chaotic tenure at Manchester United. A time when a brilliant footballing mind walked into a whirlwind and tried to bring order to madness. Was he the wrong man at the wrong time, or the right man whose warnings came too late? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because the next chapter in United's drama is always just around the corner. Thanks for watching.